Well, hey there, folks. I have a head cold, and this is Slow and Computing. So, to get things started today, this will be the first episode in a Wishful Wednesday series on there. Pretty much the one day of the week where I get to run around and shop for things online. Sometimes we'll actually buy things, sometimes we won't. Those times it would just be more or less like academic. But today we actually do need to pick some things up. Mainly because I have been running into a couple different issues with the slow end PC of the slow end computing channel. None of them are detrimental. Like, as you can see, it is still functioning, it is still working. But there's a couple weird things going on with it. I don't really know how to explain it. There's just, it's. She's quirky. She's got her own little issues on there, and I think I've narrowed it down to a couple things. But just so that I can illustrate my point, let me go ahead and open up an instance of Edge here, and we'll see. Times 0. Let me go ahead and grab a picture of our motherboard here so I can actually point to things. This is looking kind of familiar. So this issue right here, this little square right down over there that kind of looks like a little CPU on there, I think is what's causing the issues. And let me explain that. So with the slow end PC, this is an old Dell Optiplex. It was designed for just kind of typical business use case on there. It really wasn't designed to work hard. And if it was working hard, it was only ever going to work hard for maybe a few hours at a time, and then it would just go back to checking emails and doing basic stuff on there. In business environments, very rarely are you actually doing heavy lifting on the actual computer that you have. If you do have heavy lifting, you either have a dedicated system for it, or you offload it to like a server or like a mainframe or something like that. For something like one of these guys, they would be doing just kind of mundane tasks. In its current life, it is going, well, not that it's going to be, it has been used for probably about the last week or so as a full-blown gaming rig, something that it was never designed to do. Because it's a little bit older, because it's a little bit slower, a little bit more slow end. Sorry about that, folks. It is running at 100% capacity. Every game that we fire up, that CPU 100% load, GPU 80s to 100% load. And I think the issue with it is we're stressing out this little chip right over here. I was kind of always under the assumption that you just refer to these as like motherboard chipsets. Some people call them like north and south bridges and everything like that. I gotta be honest, I can't precisely tell exactly if this is the north or if it is the south. I'm really bad at that. That's something I need to work on. But I'm just going to refer to it like I always have. This is a motherboard chipset. And if you look at pretty much, here, let me see if we can go in and bring up just like a regular gaming motherboard or anything like that. And in computers, you'll see like gaming gets used a lot. What we're really referring to is like performance and everything like that. So like performance parts, gaming parts. It looks like this one's from Asus. It has the same like chip, like this little chip, not of course the exact same one. It would be using a different make and model on there, but it serves the same purpose, and they're usually in the same location. But you'll see with this one is it's underneath a giant chunk of aluminum, and you'll see that a lot with pretty much any performance motherboard. Like here's one from MSI. This one's got an active freaking cooler on it, and the reason that they're doing that is that chip handles data communications between well, pretty much between everything on the motherboard. Of course, the CPU and the RAM, those guys are connected on there. The PCI is connected to the CPU, but anytime it references something on the drive, anytime it references something in like the sound card, every time it references anything that isn't directly attached to the CPU, it goes through that little chip and it has to be handled on there. So if we're running things at 100% capacity, then that chip is also ran at 100% capacity, and it was never designed to be ran that hard. And I think that's where most of our issues coming from. I think it's just overheating, which would explain a couple of our different issues that we have with this, because we're getting like, for example, during uh, I'll get on and I'll play Fortnite, and you'll start like shooting at somebody, or somebody will start shooting at you, and the sound that the guns make, like the machine guns and everything, will be out of sync to what's actually happening. And then even when you lay off the trigger, or when they lay off the trigger, it'll keep sounding that until you start firing again, and then it'll stop and it'll start sounding correctly on there. That's just one of the weird little glitches that it's got. Other things, like with the drives and everything, like it'll load something and then it'll stop and then it'll kind of load again, and then you'll have like different instances where the drive seems to just be skipping and everything on there, which I don't think is a fault of the drive, because even though it's a decade old spinning platter hard drive, it's still running fine. The data transfers on it are fine. I think it's the issue of that data getting from the drive into the actual CPU, and I think the reason for that is because of this little guy right over here. He's just getting stressed out on there, which I can't really blame him, because there's no cooling on these guys, and that's the way that Dell specified it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look for some way to cool this down. The other thing that I've kind of narrowed it down to is, are we running these parts at maximum capacity? Yes. Is that causing some of our issue? Probably. But one of the other things that I think we're having a bit of an issue with, especially with this computer, is it is still running on the standard Dell power supply, which was never designed to host a graphics card. Well, it might have been, but it would have been like a really low tier graphics card. Certainly not something like a 1660 Super. And when you look inside the computer, there are no power cables for the GPU. What these guys did was they took these like SATA power and then pigtailed them into a 6-pin, and that's what's powering the 1660 in there. So yeah, it works. It's dodgy. We haven't tripped the power supply yet, but I can't imagine that we have very much room left over. So I think when the fans are running at 100%, when the drive is being accessed, when the CPU is being ran at 100%, when the GPU is being ran at 100%, that power supply just can't keep up. And I think that's what's causing some of our other issues on there. Usually, in my experience with power supplies, when they get stressed out like that, it's usually for a very short amount of time before they either catch on fire or they cause blue screens and crashing, and then they usually end up blowing your motherboard out. And I don't really want that to happen, because while I would be perfectly fine with blowing the motherboard on this, I would like to do it under my terms, and I'm not ready to blow it out yet. So what we're going to also do is, once we find a cooler for the chipset, we're also going to look into power supplies. And I'll explain why I didn't just run out and grab a power supply. But before we get into that story, let's go ahead and start looking at this little chipset right over here. And I have the sneaking suspicion that if we swing over to Google and we look up a motherboard chipset heatsink. Okay, actually, you know what? This actually brought up some stuff. The issue, though, would be how to attach it. Yeah, most of these have these little like feet that stick off, and you're supposed to screw them in. That's not going to work with our motherboard. Trying to drill a hole through this to mount something is not going to work with that. We're going to have to do like thermal adhesive, like so something like one of these guys might be a little bit big, but those would be fine. But then we'd have to get like double-sided sticky tape to okay, like actually hold on. A thermal glue. I don't really want to glue something onto that. And this is just, I mean, I'm fine with doing a lot of dodgy stuff, but this stuff just kind of looks kind of generic even for me. Um, I know. What if we looked into... The Raspberry Pi's got a really tiny CPU, and I bet, yep, look at that. Boom, right there. Okay, first one. 30-piece Raspberry Pi 4 heatsink kit for $7. That's not, honestly, that's not terrible. Looks like it comes with a couple different sizes and everything. I really only need the one. I don't even know what the heck else I would use all these different sizes for. Um, Actually, you know what? Let me check and see what Micro Center's doing here. No, just fine. Here, you can, yes, Edge, you can use my location. All right, well that didn't that didn't help us. All right, let's go ahead and click over to Dallasy area. We're kind of around that store. Let's go to heatsink. Okay, so yeah, so they've got them too. That is fantastic, and they've got a couple of them there. Okay, so I'll run to the store and pick a couple of these guys up, and we'll see. We'll go ahead and apply those tomorrow and see if it does anything. I don't even know how I'm going to test that. I guess, I don't know, I guess I could take y'all through a gaming session, I guess. Those tend to not get any views, though. I'll figure something out. We might just run Time Spy and see how well that works for us. But, alright, so now that we've got that taken care of, this is the reason why I was so hesitant putting a new power supply in here, and it's because of, honestly, it's because of Micro Center. I don't think that they have any, like, bad components or bad power supplies or anything like that. The issue is, if we scroll down here, we see, we probably have to click new, power supplies. Will it give us a, there it goes. Okay, so let's click on that. And we'll do one of these guys as well. One of the reasons why I'm looking at a new power supply isn't just because of the limitations that I feel like this computer is running into. It is also because Intel has just announced their B5, what is it, 80? I think it's 80. No, it is not. Is it the 850? Is that it? No, that's not it. All of these freaking numbers. No, the GPU, Bing, come on. Okay, this is why we just don't use Bing. Yeah, the new ones, because I think that is the it's the B580. What the heck? I swear I typed that in. I'm on like a lot of like cold medicine, so my brain's not functioning 100%, but I'm pretty sure I typed that in. Either way though, they released the Intel B580, which I really, really want to try. It's not out yet. It's going to be coming out in 2 days. And I'm going to line up to buy one of these. Back when Intel released their first version of their dedicated GPUs, I was gaming on an i5 1135 G7 with Intel Xe graphics, and I was blown away by what those integrated graphics could do. It wasn't anything crazy by desktop standards, but on the tiny little laptop that I had, it was mind-blowing. I was fascinated by them. And then when they came out with their own cards, I was super excited about it. But I didn't have any money at the time. I didn't have a desktop at the time. And even if I was to build one, I would have gone with the AMD GPU because that's what my customers were having the most questions on. And I wanted to get as much real world experience with those as I could. Intel was very niche, but they were always on my radar. I never let them fall off of my radar. I really kept a close eye on them. And I watched the drivers get updated. I watched all of the different stuff happen to them. I was super excited about them. And I actually came really close to picking one up a few times. I actually grabbed one from clearance, and the guy there said, "Hey, we don't know what's wrong with this. We can't get it to work." And I was like, "Oh, well, you're probably doing something wrong. Let me give it a try, and if it doesn't work, can I return it?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And I think I got a video out of that card for like a total of 5 minutes after a couple of days of working on it. So there was just something defective with the card, but it really got me interested in the whole platform. Um, but almost a couple years passed, and it didn't look like they were coming out with a new one. And I just kind of shrugged my shoulders, and I was like, all right, well, look, if Intel's not serious about it, I'm not going to pursue it. And here they are releasing the second version of it. So now that I actually do have a little bit of money and a desktop computer to stuff it in, I want to grab one of these. But the 260-watt power supply that's in this Dell is not going to drive this thing. We need a spicier power supply, and that's what kind of brings us here today. I want at the very least a 600 watt to drive that, but honestly closer to about a 700 watt. And the issue with that is, when we look at the pricing for these guys, we're looking at like the $45 range, the $60 range, which for a basic power supply is okay, but we're rapidly coming to like a quarter of what we paid for the slow end computer, which is a tough sell for me at the moment. I'd really kind of like to see more of a I'd really like to see something a little bit cheaper. And these guys are just the 600 watt ones. Like if we start getting up to like, okay, I guess this one's on sale. This is a 750 watt for $70 on there. But yeah, like that's kind of pricey. And that's kind of what's bringing me back to Amazon, because I know if we go searching for a 700 watt power supply, we're going to be looking. Okay, that's a 650 watt. Okay, so 70 is EVGA still in business? Like, I know they stopped with their GPU lineup. Are they still even making power supplies? Ah, I don't know. We'll keep an eye on that one. EVGA is one of those companies that I know a lot of people really love. I tend to not necessarily not love them. It's just I don't have any experience with them. They were always kind of like the more expensive version that when you filter by lowest price, they don't show up nearly as much. So I don't really have any experience with EVGA. I know they're supposed to be awesome. I never knew them. And I guess maybe they're still around, so maybe I'll get to know them. I don't know. But yeah, okay, here we go. So something like this. This is kind of more my style on there. Same thing with this one. Let's take a peek at that. This is a $36 700 watt power supply. And it has all of the hallmarks of a terrible idea. It's kind of like my siren's call. Because it gets me exactly what I'm looking for like half the cost of what I would have to pay for something else. It has it looks like the voltage switch is on there, which is nice, I guess. But more importantly, one of the things that's actually kind of drawing me to this. Oh, I love, I love how this thing's just bent at an angle, even in the product photo. That's awesome. Uh, one of the things that's really drawing me to this one is it looks like the case comes apart really easily on there. And this is something that I want to make abundantly clear right now. I do not recommend screwing around inside a power supply. Even if you know what you're doing, don't screw around in a power supply. Now, with that being said, I am 100% going to screw around inside a power supply. And the reason for that is I want to keep using this case. As dopey and homely and ugly looking as it is, it endears me. This version of the Dell logo was what I remember as a kid going into like schools or going into like government buildings and seeing all of the new Dell computers, and they all had that, and I was like, whoa, we're living in the future, look at that Optiplex. Because Even when I was a kid, I was a friggin' dork. But it's kind of endeared me to that little logo on there. And I want to see if I can eventually end up turning this computer into like a sleeper build. So I want to keep using this case. The issue though is the amount of clearance between the power supply that's currently in there, which I think as far as like a height dimension goes, is going to be the same height as one of these guys. The issue though is the clearance between the very top of that power supply and the very bottom of the GPU is like that much. It's not a lot. It's like less than half an inch. So the issue with that is because I know how fans work, I know that if we have one fan pulling down and one fan pulling up, there's probably not going to be any air going to either component. Which, if you don't have any air going through your GPU, you'll get terrible frame rates and it'll be a bad gaming experience. But if you don't have any cooling going into your PSU, it'll probably catch on fire, which arguably would give you an even worse gaming experience. I know that there's some folks out there that could probably continue to game with a computer that's on fire as long as it's giving them decent frame rates, but I tend to not be one of those guys. I would like my computers not on fire, and I would like good frame rates. I'm picky like that. So what we're going to end up doing with this one is I want to see if we can pull the top part off, take the fan, flip it upside down. Because generally with power supplies, they're going to be pulling air in from the fan side and blowing it across the electronics and then out. If we flip the fan around, we'll be sucking air in from the side where it plugs in and then blowing it up. It might not be the most ideal for the power supply, which is kind of one of the reasons why I want to go with a really cheap one, because if we dork it up, it's not going to be nearly as bad on the wallet. But I feel like it'll probably benefit the GPU a little bit because it will have ample airflow going through there and then accelerated even more by the actual GPU fan itself. So that's kind of what I want to try. And the fact that it's not modular, I don't care about that. That's one of the reasons why I hate glass panels. My definition of cable management is the door closed and it's not rattling against any of the fans. I know some people want to like trace each one of the lines, make it invisible. I couldn't. I don't care about that. And I know that's heresy for most computer builders and technology enthusiasts. It's just I can't care. I've tried. I just can't care. It's not in me. As long as it's not causing any issues, that's cable managed as far as I'm concerned. So I don't care that it's not a power, that it's not a, oh geez, what's the word? That it's not modular and that it's got a giant pigtail coming off of it. I'm not opposed to cutting the wires that we're not using off. I know that's also a big no-no, but I've done it on literally hundreds of power supplies and I've never had an issue. Knock on wood, which of course this table's plastic, so I'm 100% jinxed myself. But either way, one of the reasons why we're going for a cheap power supply, the likelihood of failure is through the roof. But either way, that's something that I want to try doing, and I think this is probably, well, I guess I should probably look at the other one. Actually, you know what, these are looking exactly the same. I guess this has this like netting on the cables where this one was just standard wire. So honestly, I think standard wiring would probably be easy to shove around than something in this like fishnet. So yeah, we'll probably, and since they're the same price, we'll just go with this one. Oh, this one's 1 cent cheaper. Hell yeah. Okay, so yeah, boom, there we go. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing. That is the wish on this Wishful Wednesday. I wish my computer worked better. And I think this is probably the way to do it. So we'll go ahead and place an order on that. I'll swing by Micro Center probably on my way home tomorrow, I guess. Or, yeah, tomorrow from what you're seeing. Later today-ish? From what? I don't even know. I don't even know. This head cold's killing me. I'll get the parts on there. Oh, shit. I should probably... Yeah, because this thing is really close to this PCIe rail. I don't know if there's going to be enough room. So, okay, it's going to have to be short enough that it's not going to interfere with the GPU that we plug into there. All right, I'm going to have to do some measuring. I'm going to have to do some measuring and ordering and hopefully getting healthier again. Either way, though, that's it. That's all I got. Thanks for watching.